So hi.
Hi.
It's so great to have you on the show. We're very excited to start showcasing some of the awesome nonprofits that are right here in our backyard, and then allow students to have a chance to see them and understand them, hear them speak in their own voices, and then also ways to interact with them after we're done.
I enjoy being able to talk about our nonprofit and talk about the things that we do. I'm always very surprised. I feel like I talk about our nonprofit nonstop, but I have so many people that say, "Oh, I didn't even know that was here." So it's always good to have lots of different outlets to talk about our nonprofit.
Yeah, of course. So can you tell me a little bit about the UP Initiative? Like, what's its mission and what is your nonprofit aim to do?
Okay, well, UP Initiative is a nonprofit geared towards helping the unhoused and the underhoused in Madison County. Right now, we kind of focus all of our attention on Berea, and eventually, once we have the capacity to do so, we'll expand throughout the entire county. But right now, we're still starting small. We opened a year ago, and in that time, we have been able to do a lot of different things. When we first started, our mission was initially just to feed people. And we always laugh and tell people we started with a water bottle and a granola bar. we were going to change the world. But as we first started and we started working with the people that we work with, we realized that we were dealing with some really complex issues that had some really complex solutions to them. And so we figured out very quickly that we needed to be very flexible in what we did. And we decided very early on that our mission was to provide the basic necessities, but to be able to provide it with dignity so that people didn't feel like they were begging, and people didn't feel like there was any judgment for what they did. And we wanted people to be able to come into our space and it be their space. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to treat them like clients, so we never call them clients. We call them our neighbors because they are neighbors. Mm-hmm. They may live a little differently than we do, but they are all neighbors and they are all Bereans. So that's our mission.
And you talked a little bit about how this began, but can you go a little bit deeper on like how the granola and water bottle, how did that begin?
Sure. Well, those of us who started this organization, there were 3 of us that started this organization. We really started talking about it in June of 2022. We all met working for Room in the Inn in Berea. Myself and 2 other board members on our current board were board members for Room in the Inn. And I wasn't a board member, but I worked pretty closely with the organization, and I worked on the food end of things. So I felt a lot of responsibility for that. And so I talked to some board members and I said, is there a way that Room in the Inn would be interested in expanding some services into a more year-round type of thing? So they went back to the board, and the board said, we realize that there's a need there. However, our mission is this, which is their mission to provide the emergency housing. And they said, maybe you can work with a different organization that maybe has more capacity. Maybe their mission is a little different. So we talked, and we just kind of let it go. And then the next year rolled around, and the same ton of bricks fell. And I thought, gosh, I just feel irresponsible for not doing more to help people once the emergency housing was over. So the 3 of us talked some more, and we realized, we're not going to be able to find an organization that we can expand on. So we're just going to have to start it ourselves. And I think that's how a lot of nonprofits get started. There's a gap, and eventually people say, I'm going to have to be that person to stand in the gap. And that's what we decided to do. We decided to stand in the gap. And so we planned, we talked about what kinds of things we would do. We talked about what our mission would be. So we started with the water bottles and granola bars. And, we got a physical space. But we also know the community pretty well, and we know that there's a lot of trust that one has to build in the community in order to get people to trust you to come to where you are. So we did a lot of street outreach. We tromped through a lot of woods and encampments and empty sheds, and we went out and we found people, and we started making those relationships, and then here we are today.
So I guess we talked a little bit about how it started, but now how is it going? I know that you just transitioned to a new space. So can you talk a little bit about that transition and what this new space looks like?
Wow. Okay. So when we first opened our first space, the very first space was 850 square feet, which to us was a mansion. We were so excited. And there were several offices in there, and we said, we're going to sublease this office, and we're going to be able to make money to pay for the space. And literally within the first 2 months, we had outgrown the space already within 2 months, because we realized that those issues were complex and that we needed to provide different types of services. There were so many gaps that we felt like we needed to fill. There was the food insecurity. We also offer hygiene kits for people, and not just, little things. We've taken over the last year and we've looked and seen what works and what people need. And so we've developed a food bag system that is really gets to the heart of food security. And it's not just a granola bar and a bottle of water anymore. And so with the flexibility that we talked about, we're able to provide so much more. So that also meant that we needed to have a bigger space. When we first opened, the first month, I think we probably had like 4 people that came in. But then as more people heard about who we were and we built that trust, we started having more and more. Within the first 2 months, we had our first Thanksgiving. And we have a Thanksgiving that we do on Thanksgiving night, and we will do that again this year. We had 35 people show up, and we thought, wow, okay, we need more space because we have 35 people. And then we did the same thing at Christmas, and at Christmas we had 50 people. And so this Thanksgiving, we're actually expecting up to 100. So we have lots of space. So the space that we moved into is 5,000 square feet. And that space gives us a whole lot more room, not just to provide our services, but we also wanted to be kind of a one-stop shop, if you will. So our subleases are Mountain Comprehensive, which is, they do mental health services, and Madison County Tenants Union, they work with individuals who are facing eviction. And then also University of Kentucky's Target 4, and they do rapid HIV testing, and they help with Narcan and fentanyl strips and all of that kind of stuff. So when people come in to see us, they're actually not just seeing us, they've got other services available to them in that big space now.
I also want to hear a little bit more about what services y'all provide. I mean, you've got the community closet, and I got to see that really nice kitchen. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the services that we provide, as I said, we have the food bag system, and the food bag system it's really become not just a way to give people a little bit of food. It really provides total food security for people. But everything in it is it's sustainable, and it's also shelf stable. So everything in it doesn't have to be heated, and it doesn't have to be refrigerated either. And we put everything in plastic bags so that it's guarded from the weather, it doesn't get wet or anything like that. And every bag has enough calories and protein and fruits and vegetables for an adult meal, an entire day's worth of food for them. And our folks can get up to 31 of those a month. So as the people that are coming to us are not going hungry. Our hygiene kits, that's 2 weeks worth of things. And those are things like toothpaste and toothbrushes and soap and shampoo. But it also includes things like razors and shaving cream and hot hands during the winter and sunscreen. And we also put condoms in there so that people can stay safe. We get those from our Target 4 partners. And we've created partnerships with the Berea Food Bank, and they help us with the food bags. We have the partnership with University of Kentucky Target 4, and they help with wound kits and that sort of thing that go into those bags as well. We also offer laundry services. So in our new space, we actually have a laundry room. So we have a commercial washer and dryer, so people can actually come in and do their laundry on site with us. We have a shower as well, so people can come in and take showers. That's one of the roadblocks to people getting a job. If they can't shower every day, then it's hard to work in food service if you can't shower every day. One of the other services we provide is that people who are unhoused don't have an address. So if you don't have an address, you can't have an ID. So folks come in, we help them recover their IDs, and they use our address as their address. So we have mailboxes. So when we check out the mail, we put them in the mailboxes there in the center, and people can come in and check their mail. That also gives them the ability to open a bank account, which they couldn't have done before if they didn't have an ID. So that opens up a lot of doors for people. It also opens them up for Medicaid services and SNAP benefits and all of those things that you can't get if you don't have a physical address. Other things that we provide case management for folks. So if they need help applying for the SNAP benefits or the Medicaid, we can do that on site so they don't have to go to another building in order to do that. We have a mobile health clinic that is there every Tuesday, and that is through White House Clinic. And they are there, they bring a doctor with them. And so we have folks that their regular doctors are on that mobile clinic, and they just come to us to get seen by the doctor, and they can get their medicines the way that they need to get their medicines. And other services that we provide, we have hot meals. We provide hot meals on Saturdays and Sundays. We have a Sunday ministry. We're a secular organization, but some of our people said, we would really like to go to church, but we don't have nice clothes, and we're worried about people judging us when we walk in the door. And we said, well, what if we brought people here? And they said, can you do that? Why not? So we have a different church that comes every Sunday, and they provide a meal, and they provide some kind of spiritual guidance. It can be just a fellowship. They can do a full-on sermon if they want to. Usually it's just some prayer and just getting to know their neighbors. We love it because they'll come in and eat with our neighbors and get to know them. And, our neighbors have said, I met this person on Sunday, and every time I see them out in Berea, they'll stop and say hello, or they'll shake my hand. And they said, we feel seen finally, which is, it warms my heart to know that they feel seen, and that, that people recognize that they live here in Berea and that they are the residents as well. So
I want to speak a little bit more about, you talked about how it feels like for you to help them feel seen. And I just wanted to know, in what ways has your personal experience kind of been shaped through working with this specific nonprofit and these specific demographics and issues?
I think I've always known that there were unhoused people. We don't like to use the term homeless because no one else is defined by the house, by the roof over their head. I don't walk around and say, hello, I'm Miss Cates and I'm housed. I mean, we don't do that. So, that just happens to be a circumstance that you're in, and so it shouldn't really necessarily define who you are. And that's what I have learned, is it doesn't define who you are. And helping to change those stereotypes and explain to people, who these people are. These are people, there's a myth that everyone who is unhoused is on drugs, which couldn't be any further from the truth. Do we have some people who are in addiction? Absolutely. I would not say that it's a very large percentage, that there's just not as many. There's also a myth that they're transient, they're coming off the interstate and they're just moving through. That is not true either. Most of the people that we serve have been born and raised in Madison County. And so they've lived here their entire lives. Some of them grew up in foster care and didn't have anywhere to go when they left foster care. Some were horrible circumstances because they lost people that were close to them and got evicted, and then they didn't know how to get back into housing. Some people lost jobs. Other people just, what I've learned is most of us are just one paycheck away from being in the same circumstances as the people that we serve. And so it's very humbling. We have people that are former teachers. We have people who have been nurses. We have people who are former military. We have people who had construction businesses and they lost everything and they ended up on the street. And once you end up in that situation, it's really hard to get out of that situation.
Wow. Thank you so much for speaking to that. I also would like to know kind of what challenges that your nonprofit has seen, because I mean, this work is hard and it can be difficult and it can be taxing, especially with it being a nonprofit and nobody's getting paid, and nobody wants to get stuck in that vicious cycle. So what are some of the challenges that your organization has faced?
I think the biggest challenge is misconception. In both the location where we were before and the location where we are now, if people don't know who you are and they don't know what they're doing, they make up in their brain what they think is going on. We don't provide housing. We have never provided housing. We're not a homeless shelter. That's not what we do. But I think there's fear. People have fear of things that they don't understand. And that's been our biggest challenge, is trying to help people understand who we are and what we do, and that we're not out here pulling in. I think there's this idea that we go out and find homeless people and bring them into Berea. That's not what we're doing. That misconception that people are coming off of the interstate, or these are people that have lived here their entire lives. So these people have always been here. I do know that unhoused circumstances are very different depending upon where you live, and what it looks very different in rural areas than it does in urban areas. Urban areas, you see people with shopping carts and you see them sleeping in doorways and on park benches and that sort of thing. In an area like this, most people don't realize we have an issue because they don't see them. And, because they stay hidden. We have lots of trees. They can stay hidden in the trees. We have lots of back roads. They can stay hidden on the back roads. And, they get very good at moving. They'll be in one space for the summer months, but then when all the leaves come off the trees, they have to move because they're more visible. And so they end up moving their encampments. Some of them will be in tents for the summer, but they may move into a shed or something over the winter. That's a little bit, I guess, it's a little easier to stay warmer in one of those spaces. So
through these challenges, how could we help? How could Berea College students make a difference for your organization?
I think what we're doing right now is a huge help. So being able to get our message out and for people to know who we are, working with Bonner Scholars and Celts, and the more that we can help other people understand what is happening with our unhoused community, the more people we have who will help us in that situation, and also who will help spread the message that we are here to do good things. We are not here to put anybody, we certainly don't want to put anyone at risk. And our unhoused population, these are people, and we want them to be seen, and they feel seen. And the more that Berea College students can get out there and work with our unhoused population, the more seen they are, because they see you all out in the community, and they may recognize you. I actually had one of our gentlemen that was with us the day that you all came over to the center, and he said, I saw some of those kids the other day walking around campus, and he said, I was going to say hi, but I didn't want to seem creepy. And I said, well, you should say hi, because they probably will remember you. So, and I think this type of platform is wonderful, and I appreciate very much that you've asked me to be a part of this.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you. I'm so glad to have all these nonprofits. I think that it's been something that's been overlooked in Berea College. We don't really connect with the community. There's this whole sense of a Berea bubble, and I think we should just pop that bubble and really get back to connecting to what community means. And I guess that leads me into, how can people find you? How can students from the college interact? Is there a volunteer system? How can we?
The best way to interact with us is to email us, and our email address is up.madisonco@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook and send us. I know that young people don't use Facebook as often as us older people do, but you can connect in that way. We also have a phone. You can call us and tell us that you're interested. That phone number is 859-986-0087. Or you can go to the Celts office and they can kind of connect you with us, because we've got a pretty good working partnership with the Celts office. So
Well, I am so glad to have had you today. I think this was a beautiful conversation.
Well, thank you.
I'm really excited to put this out there and let people hear.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.